I call the Physical Plant Committee meeting for March 6, 2019 to order at 7:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Thomas Hummel.
Here.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Emily Swistek.
Here.
Jay Fisher.
Here.
Tatiana Weinstein.
Here.
Beth McCollum.
Here.
All right, the next item on the agenda is opportunities for visitors to speak. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, approve minutes of the January 16th, 2019 Physical Plant Committee meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve minutes of the January 16th, 2019 Physical Plant Committee meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Are any changes or anything? We're good?
For me.
Okay, roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Yes?
Emily Swistek.
Aye.
Jay Fisher.
Aye. Do I
Thomas
get a
Hummel.
vote?
Yes.
You get a vote, all right.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is item 4, strategic plan initiatives. The first one is agenda item 4A, HVAC project discussion and update. Director.
Okay, so in January, we discussed our aging HVAC equipment, and per the committee's request, we provided, in your packet, there's a chart of the equipment and the age of these components. Some of the components have been replaced within the last 5 to 6 years, as you can see, and there's also some equipment there that's about 30-plus years old. We're also addressing a duct connector that needed to be replaced due to some tears and breaks, and that invoice is also in your packet. And then additionally, we need to solve an air circulation problem in the administrative offices, and we talked about this last time in admin. We've got 4 people working in a very tight space, and there's very little circulation in there. And then my office, Beth's office, and Ginger's office all are kind of attached to that same area, and there's only a couple of thermostat adjustments there. So I know that Beth has reached out to our current vendor, and they've provided a very comprehensive ductwork plan for us, but I know that Beth has also reached out to another vendor, and they have not gotten back to us. I know Beth has been out of the office for a couple of days, so we're waiting to hear back from another vendor. But did you want to go over a little bit of what Monaco gave us?
Well, Monaco had suggested that we change sort of 2 zones. So one zone is the director's office with the office that we're trying to solve the temperature control. And then the other zone would be the finance director, and then the assistant director. We're on one thermostat, and the other 2 rooms are on another thermostat. So the suggestion was that we change some ductwork, we change the thermostats, and the admin office would have its own thermostat, in a sense, and they think that that would, they would be able to generate cooler air to keep that room cool, because it's a year-round problem. So again, they're
Heat and air.
yes, well, yes. In a sense,
It's
Monica
hot
said
now, but-
it needs air conditioning almost all year, and to get that air conditioned in the winter, you would bring in outside air. But in the meantime, it would have to pass through the director's office, even though the duct worked. So that's kind of the issue that they're making suggestions for. And so we're looking for a simpler solution, again, to have someone look at the ductwork and see what else we can get done.
And I think the current vendor is talking about an $8,000 to $10,000 project.
Correct.
In regards to that ductwork solution. So not inexpensive, but we also want to touch base with a couple other vendors to see if they can work with our system, because our system is also connected to software. If we can come up with a simpler solution, we will go that route. Otherwise, we'll move forward with this project, and we'd get the full proposal out from Monaco. You want to talk about the invoice that's in there? What's happening with that?
So on March 13th, we're doing the $1,500 repair on the liner to the ductwork, to where it connects to the air handler in the west, one of the air handlers in the west mechanical room. So they're not anticipating any problems. It's probably a morning project. The project for the administration office, they estimate would be about a week, so we'd have to shuffle staff around, and we'd have to also kind of wait for more moderate temperatures. So that's another component to the proposal.
Do you want to go over the chart that Monica provided with the age of the HVAC? Does anybody have any questions about this? I mean, there's a lot of acronyms in here. Maybe you want to go through what those.
Well, the
Units are-
AHU that you see are the air handling units. And so then on the far right side, there's a W for the west, and further down, there are the two that are for the east end. The condensing units, those are the air conditioning units. The mini split is part of the rooftop unit. And then, actually, then it says rooftop unit is a York for the, that cools the admin office,
No.
or excuse me, the adult services office.
Yes.
Where's that at? Which one? What number or which?
It's about a third of the way down
Okay.
here.
What's the
What's the-
RTU?
RTU.
Okay.
Oh,
Rooftop
And
unit.
that's just a singular unit that only services the adult services office. Strange, yes.
Yes. That's efficient.
Yes.
And then there's several humidifiers that are on, and it tells you which air handler they're on the far right-hand side. The DHW tank. That's the hot water heater, domestic water heater.
That's becoming a trend in HVAC components.
Yes. And then we have pumps, which is part of the, how the water gets into the boilers. And then you have two boilers that are both in the west end. One is bigger, number one, and it is your, the main one, and the second one is the backup. And
So, excuse me, we don't know the age of those, I mean, guesstimate?
I looked just myself, looking at the plate that's attached to them, and it says that they were manufactured, one was, I think, 2010, and the other one was 2012.
Fairly new then.
Right. Then it says that there is an air compressor in the east end, and another mini split evaporator, which is part, again, I think for the, I think again, that's for the east end.
That's HVAC.
We have had the motors replaced in the air handlers in the east end. And Monaco believes, prior to them working on the library, that the motors were replaced in the air handlers on the west end.
Okay. But, so, my question to Beth was the air handling units, the 37-year-old air handler units, as well as the 30-year-old air handler units. That is the complete unit, but we've had components within the unit replaced, like we've had some sensors replaced within those units, we've had
Motors.
some motors, but the actual physical huge boxes out there are indeed at 37 years old and 30 years old. Did they ever discuss the life expectancies of those components?
Once the components were changed, they said that was a good maintenance project, but reminded us again that they are, as a big unit, at the end of their life cycle, or towards the end.
So I think what we've done as a library and over a number of years have been replacing pieces within, and I think we feel like we're okay with them, though they are older.
and they might go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I thought-
Hopefully it's good for a few more years.
Right before I got on the board, I thought didn't you guys have like a big HVAC project? I know there was a big roof project, and then wasn't there a big HVAC project? So,
Well, that was
Yeah.
these 5 and 6 year old.
sure, yeah.
And it was also adding on the electric, computerization. We didn't have that prior, so one of the things that the electrical computer component does is when the HVAC system would turn on, you'd actually hear a thunk because the electricity was like surging to that air handler, and actually the lights might actually sort of dim, and now this electrical component more moderates that electricity as it goes to the air handlers. And that was around 2012, when they did the boilers, I believe.
Okay, so we've got a couple of projects with that. We've got the thing that's happening on the 13th, the duct connector, and then we're going to hear back from the other vendor regarding the simpler solution, and then getting a more itemized proposal from Monaco if that can't work.
So you don't need anything with the committee beyond that then? The committee doesn't have to do anything else beyond that? Okay.
If we receive a fuller proposal from
Okay.
Monaco, if that's the way we go,
Okay.
we'll present it at our next meeting.
All right, any more questions on the HVAC projects? No? Okay, then we'll move on to 4B, stormwater report update.
Okay, so this agenda item refers to our stormwater drainage system on our campus. And in February, the committee reviewed a report with recommendations by Visu Sewer. That's the company who took footage of our drainage pipes on our campus. And they also, we also took a look at that footage, and we saw some of the cracks and some of the disconnections on in our drainage pipes. And so the committee requested that we contact the village and ask the public works director about how the village manages their stormwater issues, and if they do the work or if they outsource the work. And so Beth has an update about that conversation with the village.
So I spoke with Jason Elias from the Public Works Department at the Village of Lisle, and he explained that they do have their sewers televised and they outsource that work. And once that's completed, then they work with the engineering firm of James Bennis, which is local, and they review the report and create a scope of work so that they're ready for the bidding process to get those repairs done. And he kind of just went through how they do need help getting their scope of work written, and that engineering firm does help them do that. That's about the.
Did that address your, I think Marjorie, you had a
Right.
question with the village.
So the question was, do we have an engineer with the sewer company? And now we do. We found out that the village does use James Bennett, which is an engineering company, so,
Right.
yes.
Yes.
So, piggybacking on that, Beth's work with the village, I also called 6 different construction management companies that also handle stormwater projects, because
Good.
that was my criteria. I wanted in sourcing companies, because on the end of our agenda, we talked about a facility assessment. So, so when we get to that agenda item, I can talk about, and one of them was Bennis, so I talked to Bennis too. So when we get to that, I can talk about my conversations with them.
Great.
Okay?
All right, so we'll maybe follow up with more on that when we get to item E. And then in the meantime, next agenda item is 4C, which is keyless entry update.
Okay, so at our last meeting, we talked about implementing a keyless entry system to the building, and this concept involves accessing the building via a swipe card or a fob. This allows us for a more efficient replacement of fobs or cards if they're lost, or it also allows staff to see who's in the building and when. It allows us to issue cards to like work staff if they come, like third parties coming in and working to access different areas of the building. Also, if we lose staff or there's a change in leadership, you can just X out somebody's card and issue a new card to a new person. There's also the ability to use the cards or the fobs for queue jobs, for the printing. So there's a lot of benefits to this. So we had 3 companies come in and assess our building, and for keyless entry throughout the building. And they walked the perimeter, they counted our doors, they did external, internal entry. They noted the variety of doors we have. So we have some metal receiving doors, we have the wooden internal doors, we have the sliding doors for the entrance doors, and all of those came into play. They also noted the security system that we have on both sides. So when we have the keypad security system. So with that, some of the ballpark numbers that came in were $21,000 to $34,000. So it's not an inexpensive venture. Most of the cost is due to the wiring of the doors. So if there's a base for the software, it has to run from one end of the building to the other end of the building. So this is an electrician and other also new door latches that work with the electronic system and keyless entry system. So we have about 8 doors that would be affected if we went forward with this, but this would be a project that would go out for bid, obviously. And I recommend that if we go forward with this, I know there's going to be some discussion, and Beth might have some updates on her discussions with the vendors, but I would recommend that this project move to the 1920 budget year and probably closer to the 20, just due to the cost, and we would have to go out for RFP, and we've got a number of projects on our plate. But I'd like to have Beth update us on this project and then open it up for discussion.
As Tatiana mentioned, the tour encompassed the main entrance here, the receiving door and interior doors, and the vendors who came to tour the building, when we looked at it, this also included having electricians, having locksmiths come. So 3 of them, they would bring their own people that they normally work with. So each door presented sort of a different problem to solve. And so they were here for about an hour each looking at all the doors. So it's not just a look-see. For example, with the sliding doors, you had to demonstrate how they work from exiting in an emergency to, what do they do when you're in the auto position? How do the doors function when they're in the locked position? So it was very interesting to hear their suggestions on what they might propose to do this, but it was quite technical.
And I had mentioned that we had some components on premises on the other end of the building, on the way far end. What we have is we have a swipe station on the outside of the building that was installed, gosh, it must have been 15 years ago. And they all looked at it and said we could indeed use it, but really it's just the swipe station. They would have to replace some of the components inside that would read the specific fobs.
What kind of station?
It's like a swipe, it's like a
Swipe
little box
station. Okay,
where you would
I
swipe
didn't
your
hear that.
card.
Okay.
And it also has some wiring to the door that's on the west end of the building. But that wouldn't alleviate any costs, really. They said, all 3 of them said, it really doesn't alleviate that much cost. Because they would have to replace some components. And none of that station addresses any of the doors in the building or the side of the building, so unfortunate.
Now, going back to where you said most of the cost is due to the wiring, is that wiring, would that be specific just to the doors, or can that wiring be tapped into something else, like for anything electrical, or no?
No, it's its own system,
Gotcha.
it's separate. So we just wanted to update you on that. I can put it into the budget for 1920. It would probably be a special reserve project. We would have to go up for bid, but I wanted to hear what everybody thought about the idea.
How do you, the staff, feel about the urgency of the project, or non-urgency, or?
I wouldn't call it an emergency, but I think it's something that we would plan to do. A lot of buildings are doing it, public buildings, and a lot of it is due to just having better security, a better knowledge of who's in the building and when. Also, it's the added benefit of tying that into a networked printer and scanner, so it helps with queuing up the jobs for all of the staff here. The other thing is we have the punch keypads to get into admin and some other areas in the building, and in an emergency, if you need to run from the public floor into one of those areas, remembering the keypad.
Exactly.
It can be pretty frustrating. So, when you think about like an emergency situation, whether it's active shooter or something else, and you need to get somewhere quickly, just swiping your fob might be an easier go. So it's security, it's efficiency, also not rekeying doors if you have a situation where you have a staff person leaving, having to rekey all the locks. It's easier just to do. All you do is
Destroy that card.
strike someone's key card, and then you issue a new one.
Well, when you mention it tying into the IT, the network printers and so on, are any of those projects, I know I have the list, on the project list here? I mean, would it coincide?
It's in the
Plan
keyless entry's
technology.
in there.
It's in there, okay.
I mean, this is a draft. These
No,
aren't
I
in-
understand, but you mentioned, I think I see that in the
The building.
2018, 2019?
But as I mentioned,
Okay.
when we get to that list, some of those projects will have to move.
Okay.
Just due to cost or due to the season,
Okay,
yeah.
got it,
And the printing is really just for the main copier in our copier room.
Right.
okay.
Is it like a significant extra charge for that? Is that kind of included in?
It's part of the package, and all of the firms who offer it, so.
You mean as far as the copier goes?
Yeah.
The copier is already set to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
We
our
leased
copiers-
it that way to be ready
Oh,
for
good.
that.
Gotcha,
Yes.
okay, okay. So you would want to budget it in this upcoming budget for fiscal year 2020, but if, depending what happens as far as anything with this building or any other location, you probably wouldn't expend those funds until the later part of the fiscal year, like
Probably,
sometime like in
right.
2020.
Yeah. I think we need to have broader discussions about our footprint here as well as when we get to the facility assessment.
Sure,
I think
sure.
once we hear back from that, we'll know more.
Absolutely.
Because that's always been my thing, as long as, what's a door today may not be a door 2-3 years from now.
Or there might be a new door.
There might be a new door,
Exactly,
there might be a
right,
new door,
right.
or there may be doors somewhere else.
Yeah.
True,
So,
very true.
so that's the only little,
Well, that's why I
Yeah.
suggest moving it forward.
that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, and plus we'll have a better idea by, like a year from now, or 10 months from now. 9
We
months.
should,
Yeah,
and we
so-
should have a better idea about our facility and our campus once we have an assessment
For
done.
sure, sure. So I mean, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that item? All righty, then the next one is 4D, Universal Design Restroom Project discussion.
Okay, so last month, the committee asked that staff contact vendors to assess updating our east end bathroom counters to provide better accessibility for children and for patrons who use wheelchairs. And in the packet, there's a very rudimentary drawing of what we are basically talking about. So we're talking about counters and one of the sinks being at a lower level. Obviously, this isn't a detail, it doesn't have all the plumbing or anything like that, but we just wanted to provide something that one of our current plumbers offered us. Beth also has an update on her vendor discussions and her visit to the Park District, and she also visited C-Spar. In the chart that's at the back, this project is about $20,000. It's under $24,000 in terms of Beth's conversations with a couple of vendors. I know she's got another one coming, but this project would not have to go out for bid. So this is something we could probably move forward with, in the next few months. So I'll turn it over to Beth.
So I toured the Park District and was able to see the restrooms that are in the Gentle Learning Preschool, in their public area, the senior center, and their C-Spar. So Gentle Learning Preschool and C-Spar have individual restrooms in their classrooms and activity areas. So they're for anyone in there to use, but they're designed in the preschool, they're designed for children. And in the C-Spar, they are adult design, but again, it's a separate, they have 2 rooms each with handicap accessible, bathrooms, which is the same way in the preschool. the public area of the Park District has restrooms with counters that are similar to the Lisle Library's restrooms here in the lobby.
And these stools.
They're using a stool for the children then to, if they're in there with their parents or caregivers. The staff at the Park District made several suggestions. They said that in our drawing, if you saw, the shorter counter was approximately 30 inches off the ground. And they said that was the height that they found was appropriate for 3.5-year-olds and older. Their 2-year-old classroom, they actually changed it out and lowered the sink in their classroom for that, because that's what they found worked best for that age group. So when she actually, my tour guide, Cheryl, actually got out the tape measure and was measuring, you know, what's the height of the sink in the children's area. So 30 inches seems to be the correct. And they also mentioned they didn't like using a cabinet style like you might have at home for the sinks, and that they said at first that was part of their discussion, and they said that wasn't good. So.
How about the 2 vendors?
Oh, okay, so we've had several vendors come and they've looked at all the bathrooms. They see that in the men's room that the splash backing is coming loose, so they've taken their specs, and you know, we've talked about it. We have one more vendor in Naperville coming, and hopefully we can you know, talk again and get some ideas. We're trying to look at sinks that are under the counter. It makes for an easier counter clean. That seems to be the way. And then, you know, again, we're still looking at auto faucets, the same that are in there, just nicer ones that actually come forward towards the sink better, for especially people in walkers or
Because right now you
wheelchairs.
have to kind of
Yeah,
lean.
so it'd be like
Yeah.
the one, like, it's kind of, but.
Or
like,
just
yeah.
Just further
Oh,
out.
okay.
Comes further out.
What about like the soap dispenser in there, since it seems to like leak and then the counter gets all like worked and
We
stuff?
can get otter ones.
Okay. And then the other thing I was thinking of as you were talking and I was looking at this, if you've ever been to the Arboretum in the Children's Garden, there are bathrooms in the Children's Garden that have one sink that is lower. So that might be another place to check out if anyone has a membership to, or to, you know, just communicate with them and see, because they do have, and I don't know how high it is, but it's definitely a lower one for kids, so
Interesting.
that might be something else to check out too.
So of the 2 vendors, or 3, I can't remember, that came, they provided a ballpark quote, but it was not an itemized list. It did not list all the components out, the type of faucet, the type of countertop, but they did give us an idea. So again, this is an under $25,000 project. So what I'd like to do is, and then I know Beth spoke with them and that their workflow is a couple months out.
Right, they're kind of already booked several months ahead, and we did talk about the fact that we do have other restrooms here in the building, so that they would be able to work, you know, in both of these bathrooms, and so when counters go in, they would do counters in both bathrooms. That would be the plan of both of these, the primary vendors that we talked to.
The other thing I'll mention, and I don't want to forget what Marjorie and I discussed on email regarding the East End bathrooms, so I'll get to that. But the other thing is that once we hear from the Naperville vendor, because all of these quotes will probably be around the same price range, I'd like to work with one and ask them to come back with an itemized list about the components, the types of materials that will be here. We'll bring it to the next meeting so we can all look at it
Good.
and make a decision, and then get on their schedule of work so we can move forward with the project. Back to what Marjorie asked me about, we do have 2 bathrooms on our east end. They are very small. These bathrooms out here, I'm sorry, in the west end. On the east end, these bathrooms, we both have handicap accessible stalls. On the east end, we have baby changing stations. The bathrooms on the west end are so small we cannot have them in there. So providing another accessible sink there is a major construction project. So that's why we only received quotes for the east end, because we figure this is the end that has the baby changing stations and having the lower level.
Is the reason there's the 2 doors in the bathrooms down in the west end, is that because of the fact that it's on like the floor? Like it's not separated from the like
I'm
library?
not really sure.
You know what I mean? Like I was trying to figure out like here, because it's kind of like a lobby area, it's like there's just the one door, but down there there's all that dead space because you go in one door and then you go in
And
another
there's
door.
like 3 feet of,
Well,
yeah.
up here, they didn't use a door, but you have that privacy wall.
Yeah,
so
the
you can
privacy
go
wall.
in one.
Okay.
Down there, in
There's
the
also
men's
a
room, I
wall.
think it's a straight entrance without a
Yes,
privacy
for the
wall.
guys.
Okay.
In the women's room, the privacy wall is a door.
Okay.
But it's
With a little bit
offset.
of wall.
Okay.
Right.
But it's a very tight space.
Yeah.
I mean,
just-
without a wheelchair, I mean, it's difficult just
Yeah.
physically walking in there.
Right. That's why I was just kind of curious about why it was designed that way.
Wish I knew.
Okay.
Exactly. So next month we'll come back with something a little more comprehensive.
Any other questions or comments in regards to the universal design bathroom? None. Okay, then we'll go to 4E, facility assessment discussion.
Okay, so as I've mentioned, my goal was to connect with firms that both deal with stormwater, like mitigation, repair, and also a company that could do a building condition assessment for us. And so what I asked was if they were, what I did was I looked at different Chamber of Commerce sites, ours, as well as other communities, and tried to take a look at some websites to see who did this kind of work. When I called the companies, I let them know what we've already done, so I let them know that we've already televised our drainage pipes and asked them if they would be able to assess our report to help us truly identify if these are indeed priorities, because we wanted a second opinion on that. And then if they would help us write an RFP, because we're not experts here, if they would help us in that, scoping out the work for us, and then also assist in bid evaluation, because once we get them in, we want someone to help us with that project. I also asked if they would be willing to perform a building assessment, so talking about the age of our facility, looking at the different mechanicals, HVAC, electrical, water, plumbing work, core structural components like our masonry, our foundation, our roof, even our windows, that kind of stuff, and our detention areas around the campus. So I talked to 6 firms that handle both, or at least they say they did on their website. The first firm I called was Bennis, and yes, they do construction management, and they maintain, and they do drainage improvement projects, but they wouldn't be able to perform a building assessment for us when I discussed this with them. They would be able to review our footage and help us out with the RFPs and help us out with bidding it out and evaluating it, but they would not do like a building assessment. I then called a firm in Downers Grove who do cost estimating, but they don't help with the RFP process. They would not be able to review our footage and go that route, but they would do actual construction management for us. I have another firm I called in Westmont, and they're supposed to get back to me. I just got very peripheral information from them. There was another firm in Oak Brook I contacted. They were civil engineers. They would help us with assessing our report, identifying the priorities, and then also help with the RFP and scope of work. They would assist us in the bid evaluation. They would perform a building assessment, but only externally. So they would look at our external campus and our external facility. They could not do the internal, like HVAC and electrical work. I contacted a firm in Wheaton who would help us with the footage and RFP for bids, but not do the facility assessment. And then, as mentioned at our last meeting, FQC / Jack Hayes was mentioned. I called him, and their firm is based out in Addison. They do cost estimating, analysis, and they would also be able to perform a building assessment, internal and external. He would help us review our footage. Their firm would also be able to package, like do the whole RFP process for us. And he also offered to just help us write the RFP ourselves, and then for us to push out the RFP, do the newspaper ads and things like that. So they could either do it all for us, or he would assist us with us doing that. He would perform an evaluation of the useful life expectancy of our equipment and building. He said he would be able to project out 5 to 10 years in terms of life expectancy of all the components in and around our building. He said that it would take a couple of months to actually do a full assessment. And so I'm sure you're all wondering what all of this would cost us. So the two firms that I really got a good feeling from was the Oakbrook firm I spoke with, and FQC. And both of them assessed that a project like this, like the stormwater review and RFP help with a building assessment, would be probably under $10,000 for this work. The only caveat is the Oakbrook firm won't look at the mechanicals internally. So I felt really good about talking to FQC. We do have a history with FQC. They have done some work with us. Did they help us with the roof project or the HVAC project? They helped with one of those projects. They know our building. They've seen our plans. I believe Jack lives in the community.
Yeah, I know they did the topography study of the property. I thought, wasn't it the old architect that was still on board with the roof and the air
Jim
conditioning?
Feely?
I think they were both,
But I thought they
working
kind of
together.
worked together.
not worked together, but it was around the same time. They're familiar with our facility and campus. And I like the fact that he was willing to come in and talk about it and talk about writing the RFP and helping us do it instead of, all the firms will just do it for us. They'll package it and put it out there. But I said, to save costs, us doing it and having some help, he was willing to do that. So I felt good about that. So that's that. So it is going to be about a under $10,000 project.
And they're doing assessments for other libraries.
Right, so I know FQC is currently doing a building assessment for Addison Public Library. I know they've done other municipal firms, municipal organization. The other firm in Oakbrook also has some Park District experience. The others, Venice, just the RFP for the stormwater, obviously they work for the village, we know that. The other firms, I did not hear that they've done like libraries, and some have done schools.
So they would, FQS,
See,
FQC, sorry.
yes.
They, so the cost estimate for this would be about 10 grand or a little
Well,
less.
it was a conversation on the
Correct,
phone.
correct, let's say 10 grand. But if it goes to the next level, if I recall, they get like a percentage of any, like for any work that's done, wouldn't they get a percentage of the project?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That did not come up in our
Okay.
conversation at all. But what I would like, if this committee is amenable, I could reach out and ask him to provide us a complete proposal. Obviously, this is just a phone conversation,
Sure.
talking
Right.
about the different components of what we would like in the project. If you're comfortable with my feel on this, I would like to reach out to FQC and ask that they come in, talk to us about what we'd like them to do. If you can assess us, help us assess the stormwater, help us with RFP, help us with the bid evaluation, plus do a building assessment. He can write up a proposal and tell us exactly how much that will cost. Does that sound like something?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Everybody's good with that?
Yep.
Is there anything else on that? Anybody else with any questions on facility assessment and anything else with that? I guess the only question I have is, we were talking before the meeting, like where the water runs down over here off that lot, if you could take a look at that and see if there's anything to be done.
Well, he would do a complete
Sure,
assessment
okay.
of our
Yeah,
campus.
okay.
That's on the list.
All right. Item 5, parking lot lights.
I'm gonna turn that over to Beth, because she has the whole story.
So you may have noticed that some of our east parking lot lights were tripping and were out, they were tripping the circuit breaker. So the electrician tested the lights and found out that the problem was outside, not inside the building. And the electrician is using a process of elimination to isolate the problem light pole or poles. So today, they're on in the southeast corner, which is near the dumpster, so that area the lights are on, and the lights right as you go outside the main entrance here, a couple, and as you turn the corner are not on. So we will be talking again with the electrician in the morning to see what the next step is. It seems to be sort of an intermittent problem in this area, so it's kind of like loose wiring. Hopefully it's, not in the roadway, and hopefully it's in the
Because when I
mulch.
was here, I think all the lights in the southeast corner were all out. It was completely dark. back
Right, when
there.
we started trying to troubleshoot and figure it out, they were all out because it keeps tripping the breaker,
Oh,
so
man.
that's just what we're doing, so,
I mean, it could be even like water getting into something.
yes,
too.
into the conduit or whatever, so. Fun stuff. The hope is it's just one pole. When they isolate it, they can turn that one off, and then when the weather's warmer and the ground isn't frozen, then they'll be able to change out the conduit.
Anything else in that one, or
That's
anybody else have a question on that or a comment? Anybody else have anything else done to discuss? Go ahead.
May I go back to the facility assessment, just so
Sure.
I understand the process, Tatiana? You said you'll ask SQC, what is it? F is it Frank?
Yeah.
Thank you.
FQC.
Okay. Is that just, it's not an RFP, or is it?
No.
Explain to me what it is you're going to ask them.
What I'd like him to provide us with is a proposal for work to be done here. And what that proposal would have is help with an RFP for stormwater repair work. So he will be able to review our video footage and then determine if that report that we saw from Business Sewer, if the priorities that were identified in there were indeed priorities. He'll say this, yes, after looking at the tape and then seeing what they've told us we need done, he'll say, yes, these are priorities, this one you can wait on, this one is not a priority.
Well, but you use the words, you're going to ask him for an RFP for the stormwater.
No, I'm gonna ask him to help us write an
Okay,
RFP for that work.
Got it.
So he'll do work like do the building assessment, review the tape for the sewers, and then he would have a report himself, right?
Right, he'll
Yeah.
provide us with an evaluation.
Okay.
So, remember at the meeting in January, when we got that Viso Sewer report, committee members were, well, do we go with this, or should we get a second opinion? He's our second opinion.
Okay.
So he'll help us write an RFP for the actual work that gets done outside. He will also perform a building assessment and help us see whether this building, how long components of the building will last. He'll give us a 5 to 10 year plan for those. He'll provide some cost estimates for replacement of things. So like our 34-year-old HVAC, he'll probably say, if you want to stay in this building, within 5 years, I recommend you replace this HVAC system. This is how much it would basically cost you.
Okay.
So we'll provide that. And you'll also look at a campus, so our detention areas and things around the campus.
And then he'll help us write the RFP.
Yes.
And then after we get the bids back, he'll help us determine,
Assess. Yes, evaluate.
evaluate the RFP.
For the stormwater.
For the stormwater.
Right, yes. Right.
Did he give you, or did you say this already, did he give you any idea of how long this would take?
A couple of months.
Couple of months, because if and when we're ready to go through with the stormwater, they can't work on it now. I think we talked about this in our
No,
meeting.
and you have to give 30 days.
But we'd like to be ready by summertime.
Right, and you
At
also
least
have to give 30 days.
I would,
When it starts raining a lot more?
Yeah,
Well, it's not gonna be done this spring either, probably. It'll probably be done
Right.
in summer.
Yeah.
Because you have to give 30 days for companies to respond.
okay.
Yeah.
Go to
So,
the RFP.
It's good we're doing it now.
Yeah.
It's good we're doing it now. I had one more thing.
Okay.
Planning your next meeting.
Yeah, but before we get to that, just to follow up though, I mean, it's fine with like the price of the 10 grand, but I would just double check to make sure if he's then, once if he does the RFP for the stormwater, does he get a percentage of it of the project cost of that?
I will ask
Okay,
that
that's the only question I had. Anybody else?
Were we gonna talk about this?
Oh,
The last page?
Well, if there are any questions about that.
sorry. Good catch. Yeah. Any questions on the project list on the last page?
So let me give a little background.
Yeah.
I sent you all this in email, but I'll say it out loud again. So I've updated the project list. This is just a shift in format from the blue, yellow project list we had before. This lists our planned projects for building items as well as IT areas where they involve like physical layout and hours of work for that physical layout. There's also a new column to the right that documents unexpected projects. So our elevator project, our stormwater drainage projects, these are projects we did not plan for a year ago. They came up this year. So just a reminder to everybody that these things happen and that we should plan for unexpected projects. The areas that are gray are already completed. Everything else are planned and are possible and may move to the 1920 year, depending on expense, depending on the season. Or some of them may wait until we have a better idea of whether we're, staying in this footprint or doing something different. So just something to keep in mind. The dollar amounts there, again, are just ballpark. They're estimates, and then some may require a call for bids, obviously. So again, this is a draft. We're going to use this for budgeting purposes for our meeting next week, so you might hear us reference some of these projects when we have our committee of the whole meeting. So
Will this be included with for the budget meeting or no?
it can be. I mean,
Okay.
in those discussions we talk about these projects, so we can include this list.
Just a quick question on the plant technology on the second one, the PC monitor replacements and laptops. Then it says 15,000 to 18,000, then it's got staff. What is it?
Don't ask me how many we
No, is the staff, because the staff, that's for staff computers? Okay, gotcha, okay.
The laptops are
The staff, okay,
No,
gotcha.
the laptops are for the public.
No. Are they?
Yes, they're the ones for the,
And which one are you looking at, the
Labs.
1819 or
Labs.
1920? Because there's
Eight,
two.
Okay. well,
Because there's also
18. Oh, there's one downstairs.
There's
That's for the
also
public.
monitor replacement laptops in 1920s.
1920s for the public, right?
Right.
Okay,
Well, there's also one in 1819 for the public.
Yeah, we have rotating.
okay, gotcha.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, number, like the fourth,
The
the
fourth
fifth
one
one down.
down.
Yeah, I see it
Okay.
now.
All right, so the first one's for staff, the fifth one down is then for
This
public.
one's more expensive
Public.
because of Windows 10.
That's
We
fine.
bought the licenses for them, but they have to update all the PCs.
Gotcha.
And then the one in 1920 is,
It's part of like a rotating replacement
okay.
plan. Again, this is just budgeted.
Yeah, no, I was
Oh,
just,
sure. Anybody got any questions or more comments on this page?
I will mention that, just things that are coming for this year, because in the 1819, there are, in that first planned campus building, there's only one thing that we're going to do right now, and that's the parking lot striping, project. And then in the unexpected projects, those two that are still white, those things that have to happen. So that will take care of our budget until July because of the other unexpected projects. So we had our, elevator project and the firework and the stormwater cleaning. So that kind of depleted some of our lines there.
And then the last two, the bathroom, we were just, UD, universal design bathroom, and then the facility assessment, obviously that will come in by end of the fiscal year too.
We could do that now because we did, we would dip in our, if you remember, when we had our B&A, we extended some of the maintenance and repairs and contractual work. So we have money there in the B&A. We would be going above budget, but we would be taking care of that because we opened up our B&A to allow for that, just like the .02 line that we are
Getting rid of.
depleting because we will no longer have a .02 line. So we will be using funds from our corporate fund there.
Yeah, because I guess the facility assessment, that would get close. I mean, it might even be half.
Well, facility assessment, we did budget for consulting and special reserve,
Yeah.
so we can do that.
No, yeah, that's what I was saying, so, okay. It would go into this year.
But I'm
I'm
like,
just thinking the timeline, like by June 30th.
well, we'll hear more about this
Yeah.
at budget meeting next week.
Yeah.
So there's some other things in here, like the masonry repair, the sidewalk concrete repair. Those things, again, are seasonal, and depending on our facility assessment, we're gonna hold off on that. The book drop may have to wait until July, just for budgeting reasons because of the unexpected expenses, so. These are movable.
Sure.
There's a carpet cleaning from 3,000 to 90,000 in there.
Saw that.
Which is
Wait, where's that?
carpet cleaning or carpet replacement, so I
It's
had
in
Beth look
1920.
at our like if we stayed in this
Oh,
building.
wow.
Beth looked and saw how much it cost us to replace all of the carpeting in the building. Not that we would do that, I just wanted it in there so you're aware of what
Right.
that cost was.
The last time we did it.
Yeah, and that was back 12 years ago. 10 years ago, 2007.
You did some of the rooms though, right?
Yes.
The rooms,
Right, so
yeah.
The
we
reading
do up
room and the
here.
lobby has been done.
Yeah, that's, I
Right.
thought there was some
But the
more
total
recent,
cost
yeah.
was that amount, so I just wanted you to be
Okay.
aware of that. That's a large expense.
When the weather gets a little bit better, we have it in the budget to clean the carpeting, and that will definitely be done.
588-2300. Any other questions or?
Well, Tatiana, when we met, you indicated that we had already out of the .02, we've spent 141,000. I think that's in my notes from when you answered my questions.
It's true.
Yeah. Hold on.
I'm trying to remember which question.
I've got it right here, but I can't find it.
You got their page from.
Thank you. Paid, but there's a.
Right
total.
here.
Here. We have currently spent 141,000. Okay, and we've got 3 account lines for 220,000. So,
For the B and A.
for B and A, not in the .02.
It is.
It is,
the-
okay,
it is the
so then
0.02.
we have close to 80,000. Right, and that would be used towards these projects on the last page, correct? And then you also mentioned we would have to pay for some of it out of the corporate fund.
We could,
We could?
We could.
Okay,
yes, because we've extended our B&A in the maintenance line.
okay, and we'll talk about it at the budget meeting.
Honestly, depending on the availability of these vendors and scheduling, some of this might not happen until July anyway,
Yeah,
so.
that was kind of my question before. Is it gonna get in before June 30th or?
We shall see, but I know for a fact that we're going to do 3 projects before June 30th, and that is the seal coating, the tamper-proof backflow wheel on the unexpected, and the ductwork for admin. Those 3 we budgeted for, and we can probably get in before the end of the year. Well, we haven't budgeted for those unexpected, but we have budget for those projects.
I'm sorry, the 3 again were what?
It's the, we were seal coating the parking lot.
Seal coating?
And then the 2 that are left in unexpected.
That's tamper backflow
Tamp-
and ductwork.
The tamper,
ductwork.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha,
And then this.
Ductwork.
The seal coating, yep.
yeah.
Those
okay.
3.
Any other questions or comments on this sheet? Any other questions or comments in general? Oh, meeting, we'll get, okay, want to do the meeting
Yeah,
date now?
that's what I
Okay.
wanted to ask about
Okay, let's do a
also.
meeting date.
Okay, so I would like to go over what we're gonna do at the next meeting. So for HVAC, we're gonna have one more vendor come in and ask for a simpler solution regarding our project. Outside of that, if we can't, we will go with the vendor we have and we'll ask for a more comprehensive proposal and we'll present that at our next meeting. For the stormwater, I will reach out to FQC and ask for a proposal itemizing the work that would be done and then coming in with a number so we know what we're spending on that. Keyless entry, we're just going to move to the 1920 budget and we'll talk about that at our budget meeting. And then the bathroom counter, I know Beth has one more vendor coming in, and then we will ask for a comprehensive quote listing out the components that we would be purchasing and the service work, and we'll bring that back to the committee at our next meeting. So I'm proposing a meeting in April, after April 15th, please. And we have some dates, and I'm not sure if we had days of the week that are better for everybody or not, but we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Monday. So Tuesday, the 16th, Wednesday, the 17th, or Friday, the 19th, if we want to do it directly in the middle of the month.
I'm sorry, what were
So
April?
the
16th, 17th, or 19th.
Okay.
that's Good Friday, the 19th.
So I,
The 19th is.
We'll all be,
good.
yeah, my whole family will be
yeah,
off
so
that day.
probably the 19th is not gonna work.
Okay.
I would assume, right? Or keep
It's
it.
smack dab in the middle of the day.
Oh,
I'm free.
okay, I don't know, 'cause I know a lot of people.
So, I don't
Let's
know.
shoot for the 16th, the
We'll be around.
16th or 17th.
17th would be better for me.
Okay, that's a Wednesday.
March,
That's okay, sure.
J, 17th.
So 17th at 7 p.m.?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good. And we should have the stormwater, hopefully? Did you say it would take about a month? What you were going to talk to,
FQC.
Yeah.
FQC, and he'll come in, we should have hopefully a proposal.
by our next meeting, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
itemizing the work he would do for us.
Okay.
That's what we're hoping
Gotcha.
for.
And then remember, we only give a recommendation, so actually, would you want to get that before the April board meeting?
What's that?
Because we only would give a recommendation.
Oh,
to the
that's
board,
right.
The full board is, well, actually, when the full board does it, the votes, it's under, it's.
Yeah, it's not.
It's so you could do it yourself, you don't need board authority, right?
No, and the board has already tasked this committee to do work regarding the strategic plan initiatives, and this is part of that. So
Yeah, I mean, but we.
it's not a bid.
Correct, I guess so, because it's about $10,000, give it roughly, just ballpark it. I mean, you don't need a board authority anyhow, because it's in your.
No,
within
but
your-
we wanted to run it through our committee.
Oh, sure,
so
sure. I mean, it's fine to do it, I mean, I guess what I'm just saying, just so.
It doesn't need to go
board-
to the full board.
Correct, 'cause I mean, the committee doesn't have to give a recommendation, and the board doesn't have to vote on it, because it's within your spending limits.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we will inform the
Okay.
board at our meeting
Sure.
about what we
Okay.
did tonight.
All right.
But I appreciate what Tom is saying, because if we need to get in the queue for construction companies during
Yeah.
better weather,
Yeah,
And if
the
we're going to
sooner is
bid.
better.
Right.
That,
Yes.
that's, I think that's
Yes,
what I
and
was
to
trying
write
to
a
say.
bid.
yeah, that
And
was,
the
that's
30 days
that was a long way
required.
Just
around.
didn't say it too
Yeah,
well.
a long way around the block.
Well, when we go to bid,
Yeah.
we, yes, absolutely have to go through
Yeah.
the board.
So like for, probably, well, the stormwater
When it
project, yeah,
happens.
when that happens, and you said it'd be a couple months, although would, maybe just to expedite that, if we wanted to, could he look at that first and then kind of move that along, or do you think he needs to be part of the whole assessment, you think?
I don't think that will, I mean, I think he will do it as a part of it all, but he will, that won't take so long.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to say is.
Helping
should-
us write the
Yeah, as
RFP.
far as should he maybe just look at that first and then he could do the RFP, then we could get that going, or should he, does he need, besides, he needs to still look at everything before he
I
wants to
think
go that route?
He will do that first,
Okay.
because when I
Okay.
talked to him about that, and also it's not just going to be just him assessing our building, he's gonna have to connect with other people in the company to
Oh,
come in
sure.
and look at electrical and
Oh,
all
sure.
that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a multi-visit project,
We
so
said
it
a
won't
couple
just be
months.
done on one
Yeah, you said
day.
it'd be a
Right.
couple months, yeah.
And he said a couple months is, I think, the longest it would go, so it could be shorter.
One more question.
Sure.
You mentioned painting. I don't have it right here. I think I saw painting, didn't
It's
I?
like the
It
fourth
did.
down, painting inside out, rust on canopy.
Right here.
Okay, inside out, the whole interior?
No. And
Oh,
that
okay.
would cost so much more than
Well,
$500 to
that was my
$3,000.
question.
We're just talking about touch-up paint.
Okay.
And the canopy that's outside here, they've got the metal cross
Cross
rails.
beams.
They're starting to rust, so we would scrape and paint
Okay.
just to keep it.
Yeah. We thought maybe the lobby gets a lot of use, that might need to be painted, and the group study rooms was kind of a couple of areas that we were saying needed attention.
And some we do ourselves. I know we had some marks on some of this we've done ourselves, but some of the larger walls have some gouges in them and stuff. And
Sure.
We've got a painter guy that
Okay.
does good work for us, so. And again, that's just a range of.
And the assessment can deal with the outside when it would need to be painted.
Yeah, he might say 5 years or 2 years or
Right.
something. It's time.
Good.
Anything else? Anything else? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
Motion
adjourn.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned at 8:02.